First contact observations. Research vessel Luminous Seeker emerged from fold space with barely a ripple, its quantum sensors already mapping the unfamiliar solar system. Senior observer Vexterra watched through the ship's primary viewport as the golden light of Sol painted shifting patterns across her iridescent scales. This was her 100th first contact assessment, but something about this system made her primary heart flutter with anticipation. Preliminary scans complete. Observer. Announced for second-in-command, Kalon, his crystalline interface graphs glowing softly as data streamed through them. Third planet shows clear signs of technological civilization, but there's something unusual about the second planet. Vexterra tilted her head, all four eyes focusing on the holographic display. Unusual how? It's inhabited. Kalon's voice carried a note of disbelief. Surface temperature, 462 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric pressure, 90 times what we're experiencing now. Sulfuric acid clouds. And yet, we're detecting multiple large-scale atmospheric structures. They're living there. The observation chamber fell silent. In all her cycles of exploration, Vexterra had never encountered a species that could survive, let alone thrive, in such conditions. The collective's most advanced environmental suits would fail within hours in that hellscape. "Show me the structures," she commanded, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her initial shock. The hologram shifted, revealing massive floating cities drifting through Venus's upper atmosphere. Each one was a marvel of engineering, using the planet's hostile environment to its advantage. The structures rode the savage winds like sailing ships on an acid sea, their surfaces constantly regenerating against the corrosive atmosphere. Energy readings suggest these aren't just survival habitats. Kalon continued. They're industrial complexes. The humans are, harvesting the atmosphere itself. Vexterra's secondary heart joined her primary in its rapid beating. And the fourth planet. The hologram shifted again, showing Mars. What they saw there defied explanation. Massive arrays of orbital mirrors focused sunlight onto the surface, while enormous atmospheric processors pumped gases into the thin atmosphere. The humans were literally transforming a dead world into a living one. "Send a probe to the third planet," Vexterra ordered. "I want to understand how they achieved this level of environmental manipulation." The probe's data began streaming in within hours. Earth itself was a testament to human adaptability. From the frozen wastes of Antarctica to the scorching Sahara, from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountains, humans had found ways to not just survive, but build thriving communities. Observer. Kalon's voice carried an edge of concern. "I've been analyzing their historical data networks. These achievements, they're recent. Barely 2 centuries ago, they were still burning fossil fuels for energy." Vexterra's scales rippled with shock. "Impossible. No species develops that quickly." "There's more," Kalon continued. "They achieved this without unified planetary governance. Different nations, competing interests, even occasional conflicts, yet they still managed to transform Venus and begin terraforming Mars. The implications were staggering. The collective had always believed that unified purpose was necessary for significant technological advancement. These humans proved otherwise. Their very discord seemed to drive innovation. "We're detecting unusual activity in the asteroid belt," one of the sensor operators announced. "Multiple vessels, varying designs. They appear to be mining operations." The holographic display updated to show a swarm of human ships cutting through the asteroid belt with precise efficiency. Some were breaking down the space rocks into manageable chunks, others were processing them on the spot, and still others were transporting refined materials toward Mars and Venus. "Their resource management is remarkable," Kalon observed. "They're using the entire system as a single integrated industrial complex." Vexterra felt a chill run down her spine, despite the carefully regulated temperature of the observation chamber. The collective had long sought species worthy of elevation to their ranks. But these humans, They were something else entirely. Kalon, she said slowly, revise our initial contact protocols. We need to approach this differently. Different how? Observer. We're not dealing with a species that needs guidance or elevation. These humans, she paused, choosing her words carefully, they've achieved in centuries what took the collective millennia. And they did it in environments we considered impossible to inhabit. The implications hung heavy in the air. The collective's standard approach of benevolent supervision wouldn't work here. These humans had already proven themselves capable of engineering feats that the collective had deemed impossible or impractical. Should we withdraw? Kalon asked, his graphs pulsing with uncertainty. No, Vexterra decided. We proceed with contact, but as equals. And, she added, her scales shifting to a deeper hue of contemplation, we need to warn the collective. The human's ability to adapt to and transform hostile environments, it has significant strategic implications. As if to emphasize her point, the hologram showed a massive solar collection array unfolding near Venus, its surface area larger than some moons. The humans were preparing to capture enough solar energy to power their terraforming projects for decades to come. Begin compiling a full report, she ordered. I want detailed analysis of their environmental engineering capabilities, their resource management systems, and especially their rate of technological advancement. The collective needs to understand that we're not dealing with just another emerging civilization. As Vexterra watched the bustling activity across the solar system, she couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and apprehension. The humans had taken environments that most species would write off as uninhabitable and turned them into opportunities. They had looked at a planet hot enough to melt lead and saw not an obstacle, but a challenge to overcome. One more thing, she added, her voice soft but firm. Mark this system as Category 1 in terms of military assessment. Any species that can transform worlds this efficiently could presumably destroy them just as efficiently. Kalon finished her thought, his graphs pulsing with understanding. The observation chamber fell silent again as they watched another fleet of ships depart Earth's orbit, heading toward the floating cities of Venus. Humanity wasn't just surviving in the solar system, they were reshaping it to their will. And they were doing it not as a unified force, but as a chaotic, competitive, innovative species that seemed to thrive on challenges. The implications were clear. Any civilization that fought to challenge humanity would need to consider not just their technological capabilities, but their sheer determination to bend the most hostile environments to their will. The humans hadn't just colonized hell, they'd found ways to make it comfortable. As Luminous Seeker prepared its first official contact protocols, Vexterra couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change not just humanity, but the collective itself. The age-old question of what made a species truly advanced was about to be thoroughly re-examined. The Burning Skies Project. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Aphrodite Station, watching the eternal storm clouds of Venus swirl beneath her feet. 20 years she'd spent on this project, and still the sight never failed to take her breath away. The reinforced transparent aluminum beneath her feet was the only thing separating her from temperatures that could melt lead and pressures that could crush a submarine. Project Director, the collective representatives have arrived, her AI assistant announced through her neural implant. They're waiting in Conference Module Alpha. Sarah straightened her uniform, checking her reflection in the window. The arrival of alien observers had thrown the entire Venus Development Corporation into a frenzy, but she'd insisted that work continue as scheduled. They had a planet to transform, after all. The conference room was designed to accommodate various anatomies, and today it proved its worth. The alien delegation, 3 tall, iridescent-scaled beings, occupied the adaptive seating units while her own team sat across from them. Welcome to Aphrodite Station, Sarah began, activating the holographic display. You're about to witness humanity's most ambitious engineering project to date. Senior observer Vexterra's 4 eyes focused intently on the display. We have reviewed your preliminary data, Director Chen. Your species' ability to survive in these conditions is remarkable. Sarah smiled. Surviving was just the beginning. Project Burning Skies is about making Venus habitable. She gestured, and the hologram expanded to show the entire planet. What you're seeing now is Phase 3 of our terraforming initiative. The display highlighted the network of floating cities and processing stations distributed through Venus's upper atmosphere. Each one was a marvel of engineering, using the planet's savage winds and intense heat as power sources, while extracting useful materials from the acidic atmosphere. The challenge wasn't just surviving here, Sarah continued. It was turning Venus's hostility into an advantage. Those same conditions that make the planet deadly also make it perfect for certain industrial processes. She zoomed in on one of the processing stations. High temperatures and pressures allow us to perform chemical reactions that would be impossible or prohibitively expensive elsewhere. We're literally using Venus as a planetary-scale chemical reactor. Kalon, the alien second in command, leaned forward, but the energy requirements must be enormous. They are, Sarah acknowledged. That's where this comes in. The hologram shifted to show the massive solar collection array being constructed in Venus orbit. The Helios network. When complete, it will capture enough solar energy to power our entire operation and then some. Venus's proximity to the sun isn't a problem anymore. It's an asset. And the acid clouds? Vex Terra asked. Raw material, Sarah replied with a hint of pride. We're breaking down the sulfuric acid clouds into hydrogen and oxygen, which we store for various purposes, including creating water. The sulfur goes into industrial processes. Nothing is waste. Everything gets used. She brought up another display showing the progress over the past 2 decades. We've already reduced the surface temperature by 5 degrees Celsius. Small progress, but it proves the concept. Within a century, we'll have transformed Venus into a second Earth. The aliens exchanged glances that Sarah couldn't quite interpret. A century? Kalon asked. Our models suggested such a transformation would take millennia. Your models didn't account for human determination, Sarah said with a slight smile, or our willingness to try solutions that might seem unconventional. On cue, a low rumble vibrated through the station. The aliens tensed, but Sarah remained calm. That's just the atmospheric processors ramping up for today's sequence. Would you like to see them in action? Without waiting for a response, she led them to another observation deck. The view here was different. They could see one of the massive atmospheric processors in operation. The machine was a kilometer tall, floating in the dense Venusian atmosphere like a vertical city. As they watched, it began its daily routine of converting Venus's toxic atmosphere into useful materials while gradually changing its composition. The processor you're watching is one of 50 currently in operation, Sarah explained. Each one removes thousands of tons of carbon dioxide and sulfuric acid from the atmosphere daily, replacing it with nitrogen and oxygen. The excess carbon is sequestered in artificial diamonds, which we use in our construction projects. The engineering challenges must have been enormous, Vex Terra observed. They were, Sarah agreed. The first attempts failed spectacularly. We lost good people, good equipment, but each failure taught us something new. We adapted, improved, tried again. That's what humans do. She brought up another display, this one showing the next phase of the project. We're not just terraforming Venus, we're using it as a testing ground for technologies we can use elsewhere. Mars, Europa, Titan. Each presents its own challenges, but what we're learning here will help us transform them too. The aliens were silent for a long moment, processing what they'd seen. Finally, Vex Terra spoke. Your species operates with remarkable efficiency, despite your lack of unified governance. Sarah laughed. Because of it, not despite it. Competition drives innovation. Different approaches get tried simultaneously. What works gets adopted. What fails gets analyzed and improved. We found that diversity of ideas, of approaches, of perspectives is our greatest strength. Another rumble shook the station, stronger this time. Sarah checked her neural interface. Ah, perfect timing. Watch this. The clouds below them began to shift, forming a visible vortex as one of the atmospheric processors initiated a major extraction sequence. The swirling patterns were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a demonstration of humanity's ability to manipulate forces that would obliterate most species. 20 years ago, standing here would have been impossible, Sarah said quietly. Now we have children born on Venus. They'll grow up watching their world transform, knowing they're part of something unprecedented in human history. She turned to face the alien delegation directly. I understand you came here to assess us, to determine if we're ready for greater interaction with your collective. But I hope you're also here to learn. Because what we're doing here, it's just the beginning. The station shuddered again as another processor came online. Below them, the eternal storms of Venus continued their dance, but now they moved to humanity's rhythm. The planet that had once been called Earth's evil twin was slowly, inexorably, being transformed into something new. The Burning Skies project isn't just about terraforming Venus, Sarah concluded. It's about proving that no environment is too hostile, no challenge too great. It's about showing that with enough determination, ingenuity, and courage, humanity can reshape worlds. As if to emphasize her point, a brief break in the clouds revealed the surface far below. Still hot enough to melt lead, still under crushing pressure, but now bearing the first signs of human influence. Massive heat exchangers dotted the landscape, their networks of pipes and radiators working tirelessly to cool the planet's surface 1 square kilometer at a time. The aliens watched in silence, their scaled faces unreadable. But Sarah didn't need their approval. Humanity had already proven itself by doing what the collective had deemed impossible. They weren't just surviving in hell. They were renovating it, one day at a time. Diplomatic tensions. Ambassador Marcus Rodriguez fought the urge to massage his temples as he sat in the grand chamber of the collective's diplomatic exchange station. The massive crystalline structure, floating at the Lagrange point between Earth and the Moon, had been built in record time as a gesture of goodwill. Now, 6 months after first contact, it was the site of increasingly tense negotiations. The collective's position remains unchanged, declared High Speaker Zixel, their bioluminescent patterns flashing with emphasis. The scale and speed of human terraforming efforts represent a potential destabilizing factor in this sector of space. Marcus leaned forward, his dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of the alien delegate's scales. With respect, High Speaker, humanity's activities within our own solar system are not subject to collective oversight. We share our technological developments openly, as agreed in the preliminary protocols. That is precisely our concern, another delegate, a crystalline being named Reitel, interjected. The widespread dissemination of planet-altering technology could lead to unforeseen consequences. The collective has maintained stability in this sector for 10,000 cycles by carefully controlling such advancements. The human ambassador allowed himself a small smile. And yet, in less than 3 centuries, humanity has achieved what the collective deemed impossible. Perhaps it's time to reconsider some of those long-held assumptions about technological development. The chamber erupted in a cascade of bioluminescent signals and crystalline resonances as the various alien delegates communicated their agitation. Marcus remained calm, knowing that his next words would either bridge the growing divide or widen it irreparably. Let me be clear, he continued once the chamber quieted. Earth and its colonies have no intention of halting or slowing our terraforming projects. Venus is already showing promising signs of transformation, and our Mars initiative is ahead of schedule. These achievements represent the culmination of humanity's dreams and the investment of countless resources. Senior observer Vextara, who had been silent until now, raised her upper appendage. Perhaps we are approaching this from the wrong angle. Ambassador Rodriguez, could you explain why your species is so determined to transform these hostile environments? The collective has found it more efficient to settle only naturally habitable worlds. Marcus stood, activating the chamber's holographic display. Let me show you something. The display filled with images of Earth's history, crowded cities, environmental challenges, resource conflicts. This was humanity less than 2 centuries ago. We faced a choice: fight over dwindling resources on one world, or find ways to create new homes among the stars. The images shifted to show the first Venus colonies, the Mars terraforming projects, the asteroid mining operations. We chose to expand, to transform, to create. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And in doing so, we discovered something remarkable. Our greatest innovations come from facing our greatest challenges. But the risks, Zixel began, are calculated and accepted. Marcus interrupted firmly. Every human working on Venus or Mars knows the dangers. They accept them because they're part of something greater than themselves, the expansion of human potential and the creation of new worlds for future generations. A new delegate, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate vessel, moved forward. The collective's concerns are not solely about risk. Your species' ability to transform hostile environments so rapidly. Some view it as a potential military capability. The chamber grew tense as the unspoken implication hung in the air. Marcus's expression hardened slightly. I would remind the honorable delegates that humanity developed these capabilities for survival and expansion, not conquest. However, he paused meaningfully. Any species that mistakes our peaceful intentions for weakness would be making a grave error. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Zixel's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly. Not at all, High Speaker. It's a reminder that humanity's determination and ingenuity aren't limited to peaceful applications. We prefer cooperation, but we are prepared for any eventuality. Vexterra's scales shifted to a thoughtful hue. Perhaps there is a compromise to be found. The collective seeks stability, while humanity seeks expansion and innovation. Could these goals not be aligned? Marcus nodded slowly. That's been our position from the start. We're willing to share our terraforming technology with the collective, under appropriate safeguards. In return, we seek access to your fold space technology, a fair exchange that benefits both our civilizations. Unprecedented, Rethel chimed, their crystalline form resonating with concern. No species has been granted access to fold space technology without centuries of observation. No species has transformed 2 planets simultaneously within 3 centuries of achieving spaceflight, Marcus countered. The old rules may need to be reconsidered. The chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time there was a different tone to the exchanges. Marcus could sense that some of the delegates were beginning to understand humanity's perspective. Consider this, he continued once the chamber quieted again. The collective has maintained stability through control and careful management of technological advancement. Humanity has achieved remarkable progress through competition, innovation, and the embracing of challenges. Perhaps both approaches have merit. Perhaps together, we could achieve things neither of us could accomplish alone. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the latest images from Venus. The massive atmospheric processors were visible through breaks in the cloud cover, their work slowly but surely transforming the hell world into something new. This is what humanity offers the collective, not just technology, but a new way of thinking. A demonstration that impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet. We don't seek to destabilize your society, but to enhance it with our perspective. Vexterra's scales shifted to a color Marcus had never seen before. The ambassador makes a compelling case. Perhaps it is the collective that needs to adapt, not humanity that needs to be constrained. The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. For the first time in recorded history, a senior observer had suggested that the collective might need to change its fundamental approach. We will need time to consider these matters, Zixel finally declared, their bioluminescence subdued. The implications are significant. Marcus nodded diplomatically. Of course. But remember, while you deliberate, humanity continues to work. Venus's temperature dropped another degree last month. Mars's atmospheric pressure increases daily. We're not pausing our progress while waiting for the collective's decision. As the session adjourned, Marcus caught Vexterra's four-eyed gaze. There was something like admiration in those alien eyes, mixed with what might have been concern. She understood, perhaps better than any other member of the collective, that humanity wasn't just reshaping planets. They were about to reshape the political landscape of this entire sector of space. Walking back to his quarters, Marcus reflected on the session. The collective would either adapt to humanity's rapid progress or try to contain it. Either way, the solar system's transformation would continue. Humanity had come too far, achieved too much, to be stopped now. In his office, he looked out at Earth hanging like a blue jewel in space, Venus visible as a bright point of light beyond it. Somewhere out there, thousands of his fellow humans were working tirelessly to reshape worlds that most species considered uninhabitable. They were proving, one day at a time, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their determination, but their refusal to accept limitations. The diplomatic tensions would continue, but Marcus was confident in humanity's position. They hadn't come this far to be held back by the cautious policies of a civilization that had forgotten how to dream big. The future belonged to those who dared to reshape it, one world at a time. Operation Phoenix. Dr. Elena Santos stared at the emergency alert flashing across her neural interface with growing horror. The primary atmospheric processor on Venus's dark side, designation Phoenix 1, was experiencing a cascading system failure. If it went down, it would trigger a chain reaction through the entire network of processors. 20 years of terraforming progress could be undone in days. Status report. She barked, her voice carrying across the emergency response center of Aphrodite Station. Multiple critical systems failing, her chief engineer, James Chen, responded. The processor's containment fields are destabilizing. If they fail completely, the surrounding atmosphere will crush the facility. How long? 4 hours, maybe less. Elena's mind raced. Phoenix 1 was too far for a conventional rescue mission, and the storm systems around it made remote operation impossible. She was about to order an emergency shutdown when an unexpected voice cut through the chaos. Perhaps we can help. Senior observer Vexterra stepped forward, her scales shifting with urgency. Our ship, Luminous Seeker, has fold space capability. We could reach the facility in minutes. Elena locked eyes with the alien observer. 6 months of diplomatic tensions melted away in the face of potential catastrophe. Your ship isn't rated for Venus's atmosphere. No, Vexterra agreed, but yours are. If we combine our technologies. A joint mission, Elena finished the thought. We'll need approval from both sides. There's no time for bureaucracy, James interjected. Phoenix 1's containment fields are failing faster than predicted. We have 3 hours, maximum. Elena made her decision. Contact Ambassador Rodriguez. Tell him to get us emergency authorization. In the meantime, we prepare as if we already have it. The next hour was a blur of activity. Elena led a team of engineers in modifying one of their atmospheric descent vehicles to interface with the alien ship's systems. The vehicle, designed to withstand Venus's crushing pressure and acid atmosphere, would be carried by Luminous Seeker through fold space. The modifications are complete, James announced. But we've never tested human tech with fold space transport. The stress could tear the vehicle apart. Then we better get it right the first time, Elena replied, checking her environmental suit one final time. I'm leading this mission personally. Vexterra's scales rippled with surprise. Director Santos, the risk is necessary. Elena cut her off. I designed these processors. I know their systems better than anyone. And if we fail, someone needs to be able to make decisions quickly. The alien observer studied her for a moment before nodding. Then I will accompany you. My ship, my responsibility. Authorization came through just as they were making final preparations. The modified descent vehicle was secured in Luminous Seeker's cargo bay. Its systems interfaced with the alien ship's controls, through a hastily constructed adapter. All personnel, prepare for fold space transition. Vexterra's voice echoed through the ship. Human technology integration at 92%, within acceptable parameters. Elena checked her team, herself, James, 2 specialist engineers, and 3 of Vexterra's crew. They were about to attempt something unprecedented. A combined human-alien rescue mission into one of the most hostile environments in the solar system. The fold space transition was smoother than expected. One moment, they were near Aphrodite Station. The next, they were hovering above Phoenix 1. The massive atmospheric processor was barely visible through the storm, its outline illuminated by emergency lighting and electrical discharges. Status update from Phoenix 1. James called out. Primary containment field at 18%. Secondary systems failing. The entire facility is becoming unstable. Launch descent vehicle. Elena ordered. Maximum speed approach. Their vehicle detached from Luminous Seeker, plunging into Venus's atmosphere like a stone into molten lead. The hull creaked under the strain, but held. Elena silently thanked the engineers who had over-designed every component. Approaching processor access port, their pilot announced. Massive atmospheric disturbance detected. This landing's going to be rough. Elena gripped her restraints as the vehicle was buffeted by winds strong enough to tear apart most spacecraft. The processor loomed before them, a kilometer-tall structure fighting against the planet's attempt to crush it. They landed hard, magnetic clamps engaging to secure them to the facility's outer hull. Containment field at 12%, James reported. We have maybe 40 minutes before total failure. Move out, Elena commanded, leading her team through the airlock. Even through their reinforced suits, they could feel the heat and pressure trying to kill them. Inside Phoenix 1, the situation was worse than they'd feared. Entire sections were already compromised, emergency bulkheads barely holding back the Venusian atmosphere. They fought their way to the central control room, where the facility's AI core was struggling to maintain the failing containment fields. James, start the core transfer. Kai, Lee, stabilize those field generators. Vexterra, I need your people monitoring the structural integrity. If any section looks like it's about to go, seal it off immediately. They worked frantically, human and alien technology meshing in ways neither species had imagined possible. Vexterra's crew used their advanced sensors to predict structural failures before they happened, while Elena's team rerouted power and reinforced critical systems. Core transfer at 60%, James reported. Containment field down to 8%. A massive tremor shook the facility. Hull breach in Section 7. One of Vexterra's crew announced. Atmospheric pressure increasing. Seal it off, Elena ordered. Redirect power from non-essential systems to the containment field. That includes life support, James warned. We have our suits. The processor is more important. They worked in near darkness now, emergency power barely keeping the critical systems online. The facility groaned around them. The sound of metal under impossible stress creating a constant, nerve-wracking backdrop to their efforts. Core transfer at 85%, James called out. Containment field at 5%. Another tremor, stronger than the last. Multiple hull breaches detected. Vexterra announced. Structure becoming unstable. Helena made a quick calculation. They wouldn't have time to finish the core transfer and get out. Not all of them, anyway. New plan, she announced. James, continue the core transfer. Everyone else, back to the ship. Elena, James began to protest. That's an order. I'm staying to complete the containment field reset manually. Once the core transfer is done, I'll trigger an emergency purge. The backup systems should hold long enough for me to reach the secondary evacuation point. Vexterra's scales shifted to a color Elena had never seen before. The risk is unacceptable. The risk of losing this processor is worse. Elena countered. 20 years of progress, undone in a day. Millions of lives depending on these facilities. I'm not letting that happen. Before anyone could argue further, Another violent tremor shook the facility. "Go," Elena ordered. "That's not a request." They went, leaving Elena and James working frantically in the dying facility. The core transfer crept forward agonizingly slowly while the containment field continued to weaken. "Transfer complete," James announced finally. "Initiating emergency protocols." "Get to the ship," Elena ordered, already moving to the manual control station. "I'll be right behind you." She waited until James was gone before starting the containment field reset sequence. It would take precious minutes, minutes she probably didn't have. The facility shuddered constantly now, the Venusian atmosphere trying to crush it out of existence. The reset sequence reached 90% just as the final hull breach alarm sounded. Elena started running, her suit's cooling systems struggling against the increasing heat. Behind her, she could hear the roar of Venus's atmosphere breaking through the failing structure. She reached the secondary evacuation point just as her suit's integrity warnings began flashing red. The emergency escape pod looked like it had seen better days, but it was her only option. The launch was violent, the pod barely staying ahead of the facility's partial collapse. Elena watched through the small viewport as Phoenix 1 seemed to crumple in on itself, but the containment field held. The processor would survive. Director Santos to Luminous Seeker, she managed through gritted teeth as her pod was tossed by the stellar winds. "Mission accomplished. Request pickup before this planet finishes trying to kill me." The alien ship appeared through the clouds like a vision, its advanced tractor beams locking onto her pod and pulling it to safety. As soon as she was aboard, Vexterra initiated another fold space jump, taking them clear of the danger zone. In the ship's medical bay, being treated for minor injuries, Elena finally allowed herself to relax. "The processor stabilizing," James reported, grinning despite his exhaustion. "The new containment field is actually stronger than the original. We might have accidentally improved it." Vexterra approached, her scales now a calm blue. "I must admit, Director Santos, when humans claimed they could reshape Venus, I was skeptical. But after witnessing your dedication today, your willingness to risk everything to preserve this project, I understand now." Elena smiled wearily. "It's not just about reshaping Venus, observer. It's about proving that nothing is truly impossible. Today, human and collective technology work together to achieve something neither of us could have done alone. Maybe that's a lesson worth learning." As Luminous Seeker carried them back to Aphrodite Station, Elena looked out at the eternal storms of Venus. The planet had tried its best to destroy them today, but humanity's work would continue. They had faced the impossible and won, not through superior technology alone, but through determination, cooperation, and the simple refusal to accept failure. Phoenix 1 had lived up to its name, surviving what should have been its death to emerge stronger. Perhaps, Elena thought, the same could be said for the relationship between humanity and the collective. Sometimes it took facing destruction to forge something new and better. Legacy of the Stars. 5 years after the Phoenix 1 incident, Ambassador Marcus Rodriguez stood in the observation dome of New Alexandria Station, watching the sunset over Venus's transformed upper atmosphere. The eternal storms still raged below, but they were different now, tamed, purposeful, part of humanity's grand design. "Quite a view, isn't it?" came a familiar voice. Marcus turned to see senior observer Vexterra approaching, her scales shimmering with the colors of the Venusian sunset. She had become a frequent visitor to human space in the years since the crisis that had changed everything. "The atmospheric processors have exceeded all expectations," Marcus replied. "Temperatures down 15 degrees Celsius in the upper atmosphere. Another decade, and we'll be ready to start the surface modification program. The Collective Science Council is still trying to understand how you achieved in decades what our models said would take millennia." Vexterra's scales shifted to a thoughtful hue. "Though I suspect the answer has less to do with technology and more to do with human nature itself." Marcus smiled. The years of diplomatic tension had given way to a cautious partnership after the Phoenix 1 incident. The successful combination of human and collective technology during that crisis had opened new possibilities that neither civilization had anticipated. Speaking of which, he said, "How are the joint development projects progressing?" "Better than anyone expected," Vexterra replied. "The fusion of our fold space technology with your environmental engineering has, what's the human phrase, changed the game. 3 new worlds are already undergoing preliminary terraforming assessments. The observation dome filled with other figures, human and alien delegates gathering for the upcoming ceremony. Today marked the official inauguration of the Interstellar Terraforming Initiative, a joint venture that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago." Dr. Elena Santos, now Director of Extraterrestrial Development, took her place at the podium. The scars from the Phoenix 1 incident had faded, but the determination in her eyes was stronger than ever. "5 years ago," she began, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd, "we faced a crisis that could have ended our dreams of transforming Venus. Instead, it became the catalyst for something greater. Today, we're not just reshaping one world, we're preparing to reshape dozens." The holographic display activated, showing the first target worlds of the initiative. Harsh, hostile environments that would have once been dismissed as uninhabitable. But that word had lost its meaning since humanity had proven that even Venus could be tamed. The combination of human innovation and collective technology has opened up possibilities we're only beginning to understand, Elena continued. But more importantly, it's shown us that our greatest achievements come not from working in isolation, but from combining our strengths. Marcus watched as the delegates, human and alien alike, nodded in agreement. The old fears and suspicions hadn't completely disappeared, but they'd been replaced by something stronger, shared purpose. "Our first joint colony on Mars will be ready for habitation next month," Elena announced. "Thanks to the integration of fold space technology with our terraforming systems, we've accelerated the transformation process by several decades. The red planet is becoming green." The display shifted to show Mars, where vast swaths of engineered algae were spreading across the surface, converting the thin carbon dioxide atmosphere into oxygen. Collective energy systems powered massive electromagnetic shields that protected the developing ecosystem from solar radiation. "But this is just the beginning," Elena continued. "The techniques we've developed here in our solar system can be applied throughout the galaxy. Worlds that were once considered too hostile for life can be transformed. Not in millennia, but in decades." Vexterra stepped forward to join Elena at the podium, a symbolic gesture that drew murmurs of approval from the crowd. The collective once believed that stability came from careful control of technological advancement, she said. "Humanity has shown us a different path, one where progress comes from embracing challenges rather than avoiding them." The holographic display expanded to show the full scope of the initiative. Dozens of worlds marked for assessment, hundreds more to be surveyed. A new age of exploration and transformation was beginning. "We've learned from each other," Elena added. "Human determination combined with collective wisdom, our willingness to take risks balanced by their experience in maintaining stability. Together, we're stronger than either of us could be alone." Marcus felt a sense of pride as he watched the ceremony unfold. The diplomatic tensions he'd navigated for so long had evolved into something unprecedented, a true partnership between two very different civilizations. The display shifted again, showing the latest images from Venus. The massive atmospheric processors, now enhanced with collective technology, worked more efficiently than ever. The planet that had once been called Earth's evil twin was becoming something new. Not a copy of Earth, but a unique world shaped by human ingenuity and alien wisdom. "The legacy we're creating isn't just about transforming worlds," Elena concluded. "It's about transforming ourselves. 5 years ago, we proved that the impossible was merely difficult. Today, we're proving that our differences can make us stronger." As the ceremony continued, Marcus found himself thinking about the future. Humanity had never been content to accept limitations, and now they had the means to reach further than ever before. The collective's fold space technology would carry them to distant stars, while their terraforming expertise would make those strange new worlds into homes. "You're thinking deep thoughts, Ambassador," Vexterra observed, rejoining him at the observation window. "Just wondering what challenges we'll face next," he replied. "We've proven we can reshape worlds, but there's still so much we don't know about the universe. That's what makes your species so fascinating," she said, her scales shifting to a color that Marcus had learned to recognize as amusement. "Most species see challenges as obstacles to avoid. Humans see them as opportunities to grow." Below them, Venus continued its slow transformation. The planet that had once been considered the definition of a hostile environment was becoming a testament to what could be achieved when determination met wisdom, when innovation met experience. "The next generation will take this further than we can imagine," Marcus said, watching a group of young human and alien engineers discussing plans for the Mars colony. "They won't see any world as uninhabitable, just worlds waiting to be transformed." "And that," Vexterra replied, "is why the collective needed humanity, even if we didn't realize it at first. You remind us that the impossible is just something that hasn't been done yet." As the sun set over Venus, casting the cloud layers in shades of gold and purple, Marcus thought about how far they'd come. From a single species struggling to survive on one world, humanity had become partners in reshaping the galaxy itself. The legacy they were creating wasn't just in the transformed worlds or the advanced technology. It was in proving that different civilizations, with different approaches and philosophies, could come together to achieve something greater than either could manage alone. As the ceremony concluded and the delegates began to disperse, Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, countless worlds waited to be transformed, countless challenges waited to be overcome, and humanity, together with their new allies, was ready to face them all. The impossible had become merely difficult, and the difficult had become routine. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, the reminder that with enough determination, ingenuity, and cooperation, any world could be reshaped, any challenge could be overcome. Venus's eternal storms continued their dance below, but now they moved to a rhythm set by both human and alien hands. The legacy of the stars was being written not in conquest or control, but in transformation and cooperation. And that legacy would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.